They gave the billionaire's son only 7 days to live. But what the beggar boy did. Harrison Sterling felt his legs tremble as he held the medical test results in his hands. The diagnosis was devastating, and the doctors were clear. A rare degenerative disease had attacked his young son, and the child had only 7 days of life left. It was in that moment of total despair that he saw a barefoot boy approaching his son Leo, who was sitting on the floor of the hospital courtyard. The boy couldn't have been more than 10 years old, wearing worn and dirty clothes, but there was something in his eyes that caught his attention. Leo, who had been crying for hours, stopped crying the instant the boy crouched beside him. Harrison stood paralyzed, watching that impossible scene. How had a street boy managed to calm his son when not even the best doctors in the country knew what to do? The 2-year-old, dressed in his blue pajamas with a white cloud pattern, was stretching his little hands toward the boy with a smile Harrison hadn't seen in weeks. The businessman approached slowly, trying to understand what was happening. The beggar boy was speaking softly to Leo, making gentle movements with his hands as if telling a story without words. The tears that had been streaming down the sick child's face had completely ceased. "Who are you?" asked Harrison, his voice choked with emotion. The boy lifted his brown eyes, bright with a wisdom that didn't match his age. "My name is Caleb, sir." "I live nearby," he replied simply, without stopping the gentle gestures that kept Leo hypnotized. "How did you do that? How did you get him to stop crying?" Caleb smiled sadly. "My little brother had the same disease. I learned some things while caring for him." Harrison felt a tightness in his chest. The way the boy said "had" made it clear the story didn't have a happy ending. But there he was, using his painful experience to bring a moment of peace to another who was suffering. You know this disease?" "Yes, sir, I do. And I know the doctors must have said it's only 7 days, right?" Harrison nodded, unable to speak. How could that boy know that? "My brother was given that deadline too, but he lived 8 months longer." The words hit Harrison like a bolt of hope in the midst of the storm. 8 months? How was that possible? Caleb continued his gestures while explaining, "Doctors only see the disease, sir, but they forget to see the child. My mother was a nurse and taught me that love heals too. It doesn't cure the disease, but it heals the soul, and when the soul is healed, the body can endure more." Harrison watched his son, who was now playing with the boy's fingers, laughing softly. It was the first time in weeks that Leo had shown any joy. Could you teach me?" "Yes, sir, I can, but it's not just technique. You need to have patience, a lot of love, and believe that each extra day is a victory." In that moment, Harrison Sterling, the businessman who ran a financial empire and was used to solving all problems with dollars and influence, realized he was facing something much more powerful. He was facing a boy who, even having lost everything, still carried within himself the capacity to offer hope. "Caleb, where do you live? Who do you live with?" The boy lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "I live on the street, sir, ever since my mother passed right after my brother." Harrison felt a pang in his heart. That boy, who had just given him the first ray of hope in days, was completely helpless. "Do you want to come to my home? You can help me take care of Leo and I can take care of you." Caleb looked up, surprised. "You would do that? Even though I'm just a street boy? After what you just did for my son, I would do anything for you." Leo, as if understanding the conversation, stretched out his arms to Caleb, who picked him up with infinite care. The child nestled his head on the boy's shoulder and closed his eyes, finally at peace. Harrison called his driver Mrs. Dorothy, a 65-year-old woman who had worked for the family for over 20 years. She had been more than an employee, she was practically family, and Harrison knew he would need her wisdom and maternal experience to handle this unprecedented situation. "Mrs. Dorothy, I need you to come pick me up at the hospital and bring clean clothes for a child about 10 years old." "A child, Mr. Sterling? Did something happen?" "I'll explain later. Please bring them quickly." While they waited, Caleb continued his care for Leo. Harrison watched, fascinated, as the boy seemed to know exactly when the child needed water, when he wanted to play, when he was getting agitated. It was as if he had a natural instinct, developed through the painful experience of caring for a loved one. "Caleb, tell me about your brother. What was his name?" "Silas. He was 3 years old when he got sick. He was tiny, just like Leo here." "And your mother? How did she care for him?" "My mother said medicine takes care of the body, but affection takes care of the soul. She would give gentle massages, sing songs, tell stories. She said when a child feels loved and safe, they fight harder against the illness." Harrison absorbed every word. As a businessman, he had always focused on results, goals, numbers. He had never thought about the power of affection as a real tool for healing. "Did she teach you those massages?" "She did. She said it's important to touch with love, not just technique. Your hands need to speak to the child's heart." Mrs. Dorothy arrived after an hour, bringing clean clothes and a snack. When she saw Caleb holding Leo, who was sleeping peacefully in his arms, she immediately understood the situation. "This is Caleb, Mrs. Dorothy. He is going to live with us and help me take care of Leo." The woman, with her life experience, recognized something special in the boy. She had raised 5 children and knew a good soul when she saw one. "Welcome, Caleb. We will take good care of you." On the way home, Harrison explained the situation to Mrs. Dorothy, who listened in silence, asking pointed questions and demonstrating the wisdom that only comes with experience. "Mr. Sterling, if I may say so, I think God put this boy in your path. And it wasn't just to help Leo, it was to help the whole family." Harrison knew she was right. His wife Eleanor had become emotionally distant since Leo's diagnosis. She could barely look at her son without breaking down in tears and had locked herself in her own suffering. Perhaps Caleb could bring hope to her too. The Sterling mansion was located in the Upper East Side of New York City, with enormous gardens and a pool that Leo loved, but which had been abandoned for weeks. When they arrived, Eleanor was in the living room, looking out the window with an empty expression. "Eleanor, I need to introduce you to someone," said Harrison, entering with Caleb, who was still carrying the sleeping Leo. She turned and was shocked to see an unknown boy holding her son. Her first reaction was protective. "Harrison, who is this boy? Why is he with our son?" "This is Caleb. He managed to get Leo to stop crying at the hospital." Eleanor watched her son sleeping peacefully in the boy's arms and felt a mixture of gratitude and distrust. "How?" "It's a long story. Caleb knows about Leo's illness. He has experience." Caleb approached slowly and spoke in a soft voice. "Ma'am, your son is very brave. He just needed someone who understood what he's going through." Eleanor looked into the boy's eyes and saw absolute sincerity. There was something about that boy that calmed her, even without fully understanding what was happening. Can you show me what you did?" "Yes, Ma'am. But first, where can I lay him down? It needs to be a place where he feels safe." Eleanor led them to Leo's room, a space filled with expensive toys the child had barely touched since he got sick. Caleb laid the boy down with infinite care and began making gentle movements on the child's back, humming softly. "It's important that he feels protected," explained Caleb. "The illness leaves children very scared. They know something is wrong even without understanding what it is." Leo continued sleeping, but his face, once contorted with pain and anguish, was serene. "How do you know all this?" asked Eleanor, tears already in her eyes. "I learned by taking care of my little brother, Ma'am. My mother taught me that a sick child needs 2 things, medical treatment and lots of love." Mrs. Dorothy, who had observed everything in silence, approached Eleanor. "Mrs. Eleanor, this boy is a blessing. Look how peaceful Leo is." Eleanor couldn't take her eyes off her son. For weeks she hadn't seen him sleep so peacefully. "Caleb, you said your brother lived 8 months beyond the deadline the doctors gave." "Yes, Ma'am, and they were 8 good months. Of course, there were difficult days, but there were many joyful days too. My mother said every day is an opportunity to make beautiful memories." Harrison watched his wife and noticed a subtle change in her expression. For the first time in weeks, she didn't seem completely hopeless. "Eleanor, what if Caleb stays with us? He can teach us how to take better care of Leo." "And where will he sleep?" "In the guest room next to our bedroom," replied Harrison. "That way he's close by if Leo needs anything during the night." Caleb, who had heard everything, was touched by that family's generosity. For months he had slept on the streets, going hungry and cold. The possibility of having a home again seemed like an impossible dream. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Eleanor, I promise I will take good care of Leo, and I will teach you everything I know." "First, we're going to take care of you," said Mrs. Dorothy, ever practical. "You need a bath, proper food, and rest. A tired child can't take care of anyone." While Mrs. Dorothy took Caleb to get cleaned up, Harrison and Eleanor stayed watching Leo sleep. "Harrison, is there really hope?" "I don't know, my love. But for the first time in 2 weeks, our son is sleeping peacefully. That's already something." "What if it's just an illusion? What if we're fooling ourselves?" "Then at least we will have given love to a child who needed it, and we will have learned to give more love to our son too." Eleanor nodded, still fearful, but for the first time since the diagnosis, she didn't feel completely without hope. When Caleb returned, clean and in proper clothes, he looked like a completely different boy, but his eyes still carried the same wisdom and kindness that Harrison had noticed at the hospital. "Caleb, are you hungry?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Sterling. It's been a while since I've had a full meal." Mrs. Dorothy had prepared a hearty dinner. As they ate, Caleb told them more about his life, always with the simple, direct language of a child, yet filled with a maturity that impressed the adults. "My mother worked at the city public hospital. She saw many sick children and always said love is the best medicine. It doesn't cure everything, but it helps with everything." "And your father?" asked Eleanor. "I never knew him, ma'am. It was just me, my mother, and Silas." "Do you miss them?" "Every day. But my mother taught me that the people we love never really leave. They stay in your heart, helping you to be better." Harrison and Eleanor exchanged glances. That child, who had lost everything, had an inner strength that they, even with all their advantages, couldn't find. After dinner, they all went to check on Leo, who had woken up and was sitting in his crib, looking around. When he saw Caleb, he stretched out his little arms and smiled. "He remembered you," said Eleanor, surprised. "A child doesn't forget who makes them feel safe," replied Caleb, picking Leo up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Caleb began to show Harrison and Eleanor the techniques he had learned. Gentle movements on the back, light massages on the hands, ways to hold the child that made him feel protected. It's important to talk to him, even if you think he doesn't understand everything. A child senses the tone of voice, feels the love in the words. "But what should we say?" asked Eleanor. "Tell him that you're there, that you love him, that you'll always take care of him. Tell stories, sing songs, talk about the plans you have for when he gets better." "But what if he doesn't get better?" The question came out of Harrison's mouth before he could control himself. Caleb looked at him seriously. "Mr. Sterling, my mother used to say that we never know what will happen tomorrow. So what matters is making today worthwhile. If Leo feels loved today, that's already a victory." That night, for the first time in weeks, Leo slept through the night. Harrison woke up several times to check on his son, and always found Caleb sitting by the crib watching over the child's sleep. "Caleb, you need to rest too." "I am resting, Mr. Sterling. It feels good to have a warm place to stay, a family to care for. I haven't felt useful in a long time." Harrison sat down beside the boy. "You were useful long before you met us. You took care of your brother, you took care of your mother. That has great value. Sometimes I feel guilty for not being able to save them." "Caleb, look at me. You were just a child. You did everything you could. And now you're using that experience to help other people. Your mother and your brother would be very proud of you." The boy smiled, and for the first time since they'd met, Harrison saw tears in his eyes. But they were tears of relief, not sadness. The next day, Harrison cancelled all his work meetings. For the first time in years, his company was not the priority. He stayed home learning from Caleb how to better care for Leo. "Mr. Sterling, do you work a lot?" "I did. I thought I needed to earn a lot of dollars to give my family the very best. And now I realize what they need most is my presence. Eleanor, who had overheard the conversation, approached her husband. Harrison, it's been a long time since we talked like this. I know. I lost my way, my love. I thought being a good father was giving the best things. I forgot that the best thing I can give is my time. Caleb watched the couple and felt joy seeing that he wasn't just helping Leo, but helping the whole family reconnect. In the following days, they established a routine. In the morning, Caleb taught new care techniques. In the afternoon, they all played together with Leo. At night, they took turns caring for the child. Leo was visibly better. Not that the illness had disappeared, but he was more active, smiled more, played more. The doctors were intrigued by the improvement in the child's overall condition. Doctor, Bennett, is it possible that special care affects the progress of the disease? Mr. Sterling, I won't lie. Science still doesn't fully understand the connection between emotional well-being and physical response, but I can say your son is doing much better than we expected at this stage. Can he live longer than the 7 days? It's too early to guarantee anything, but yes, it's possible. Keep doing what you're doing. When they left the appointment, Harrison hugged Caleb. Did you hear that? The doctor said to keep doing what we're doing. Caleb smiled, but Harrison noticed a worry in his eyes. What is it, Caleb? Why that look? Mr. Sterling, what if I can't? What if it's not enough? Hey, look at me. You've already given us more hope than we've had in weeks. Whatever happens, you've done your part, and you've done it very well. Mrs. Dorothy, who had accompanied the family's entire journey, approached Caleb. Young man, can I say something? In 40 years of caring for families, I've never seen a child with so much love in his heart. You are special, and not just for what you do, but for who you are. Caleb felt embraced in a way he hadn't experienced in a long time. That family hadn't just taken him off the streets, they had fully adopted him with unconditional love. A week passed. Leo had surpassed the fateful 7-day deadline and continued to improve gradually. Harrison decided to throw a small party to celebrate. Caleb, what do you think about having a celebration? I think Leo would like it. Kids love parties. And you? Would you like to? I've never been to a real party, Mr. Sterling. Then this will be your first, and it will be special. Eleanor organized a small celebration in the garden of the house. They invited only the closest people, Mrs. Dorothy and her family, some close relatives, and Dr. Bennett, who had become more than a doctor, almost a friend. During the party, Harrison gave a brief speech. 2 weeks ago, we received the worst news parents can receive. We thought it was the end of everything. But sometimes, when we need it most, angels appear in our lives. Caleb isn't just a boy who helped us care for Leo. He taught us what really matters in life. Everyone applauded, and Caleb turned red with embarrassment, but was clearly moved by the words. Dr. Bennett approached Harrison. Can I speak with you in private? They moved a little away from the group. Harrison, I need to be honest, Leo's improvement is surprising, but the illness hasn't disappeared. He still needs constant medical care. I understand, doctor. But he's living, isn't he? He's laughing, playing, being happy. Exactly. And that has immense value. You've achieved something medicine alone couldn't. You've given him quality of life. That was all Caleb, doctor. No, Harrison. It was the love of a family that came together around a child. Caleb was the catalyst, but the love came from you. When they returned to the group, they found Caleb playing with Leo on the grass, while Eleanor and Mrs. Dorothy chatted and laughed, something that hadn't happened in months. Eleanor, how are you feeling? Different, Harrison. I'm still scared, I still worry, but I don't feel hopeless anymore. Caleb taught me that I can be a good mother even when my son is sick. How so? Before, I avoided spending too much time with Leo because it hurt too much to see him suffering. Caleb showed me that my suffering doesn't help our son, but my love does. Harrison watched his wife and noticed a profound transformation. She was stronger, more present, more connected to motherhood. That night, after everyone had left, the family gathered in the living room. Leo played on the rug with some simple toys Caleb had improvised, and Caleb told a story he made up on the spot. Caleb, where do you get these stories from? My mother used to tell them to me and Silas. Some I remember, others I make up. Kids like stories because in a story, anything can happen. And what's your favorite story? The story of the family who found each other when they needed it most. Harrison and Eleanor smiled, understanding Caleb was talking about them. And how does that story end? Asked Eleanor. Not yet, Mrs. Sterling, but I think it will have a happy ending. 2 months had passed since Caleb arrived at the Sterling family. Leo had not only survived the 7 fateful days, but was clearly stronger and happier. The doctors were following the case with scientific interest, trying to understand how emotional factors could so greatly influence the well-being of a sick child. Caleb had adapted completely to his new life. He attended a nearby school, where he quickly stood out for his intelligence and kindness. His teachers remarked they had never seen such a mature and empathetic child. Caleb, how are you feeling at school? I like it very much, Mr. Sterling. But it's strange not having to worry about where I'll sleep or what I'll eat. You don't have to worry about that ever again. This is your home, your family. I know. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking it was all a dream. It wasn't a dream, Caleb. It was destiny, or God, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. You found each other because it was meant to be. One morning, Harrison received an unexpected call. It was from a journalist at a national magazine who had learned of the story through Dr. Bennett. Mr. Sterling, we would like to do a feature on your case. The story of your son and Caleb is inspiring and could help other families in similar situations. Harrison was hesitant. He didn't want to exploit the family's suffering, but he thought the story might really help other people. I need to talk to my family. Can I call you back? Of course, but I can tell you it would be a very respectful piece, focused on hope and the power of loving care. Harrison gathered the family in the living room to discuss the proposal. What do you all think? Eleanor was the first to speak. If our story can give hope to other mothers going through what I went through, I think it's worth it. And you, Caleb? The article will talk a lot about you, too. Caleb thought for a moment. If it can help other kids like me find a family, or other families not to give up, then I think we should do it. Mrs. Dorothy, what's your opinion? The woman, always wise, reflected before answering. Mr. Sterling, this story isn't just yours, it's a story of hope, and hope should be shared. Harrison called the journalist back and accepted the interview. The article was published a month later and had a national impact. The family's phone wouldn't stop ringing. There were other families going through similar situations, asking for advice, sharing their own stories. Harrison, what do we do with all these inquiries? I don't know, Eleanor. I never imagined our story would touch so many people. Caleb, always wise beyond his years, suggested, what if we helped these families the same way I was helped, by sharing what we learned? Caleb's idea gave rise to a beautiful project. Harrison, using his business experience, created a non-profit institution focused on supporting families with children in complex medical situations. The institution offered not only medical support, but also emotional support, teaching techniques of loving care that Caleb had brought into their lives. Mrs. Dorothy became one of the coordinators, using her maternal experience to welcome other families. Caleb, even though still a child, became a kind of ambassador for the institution, telling his story and teaching other street children that they too could be useful and loved. Caleb, are you proud of what we've managed to create? I'm very proud, Mr. Sterling. But do you know what I'm most proud of, and of what? Of being part of a family that didn't give up, that turned pain into love and love into hope. Leo, now almost 3 years old, continued his daily fight against the illness. Some days were harder than others, but he was a visibly happy child. His laughter echoed through the house, and his progress, even the smallest, was celebrated as a great victory. Daddy, why does Caleb call you Mr. Sterling? It was the first time Leo had asked a question like that. Harrison looked at Caleb, who smiled. Because I have a lot of respect for your daddy, Leo. He saved my life. But Caleb, your family too. You don't need to call me Mr. Can I call you Dad, Harrison? Harrison felt his eyes well up. Yes, you can, son. It was the first time Harrison had called Caleb son, but both knew he had been considered one for a long time. The institution created by the Sterling family grew quickly. In less than a year, it was already helping more than 50 families in similar situations. Doctors from across the country began to take an interest in the integrated approach that combined medical treatment with intensive emotional care. Dr. Bennett became the medical director of the institution and began to scientifically research the effects of loving care on the treatment of serious illnesses in children. Harrison, we're collecting very interesting data. Children who receive the kind of care you give to Leo show better responses to treatment, fewer pain episodes, and better overall quality of life. Does that mean what Caleb brought into our lives can be scientifically replicated? Exactly. We are developing protocols that can be taught to other healthcare professionals and families. Caleb, who was listening to the conversation, felt moved to know his knowledge could be transformed into something bigger. Dr. Bennett, does this mean other little brothers like Silas can be helped? Yes, it does, Caleb. Your experience is helping to change how we treat sick children. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, on the second anniversary of Caleb's arrival in the family, Harrison decided to do something special. He organized a big party in the garden of the house, inviting all the families that had been helped by the institution. Caleb, this party is for you, to celebrate not just your arrival into our family, but all the good you've brought to so many people. Dad, Harrison, I should be the one thanking you. You gave me a family, a home, a chance to be useful. You know you'll never need to be useful to have our love, right? You are loved for who you are, not for what you do. I know. My mother used to say that too. But it's good to know I can help others find what I found here. The party was a success. There were over 100 people in the garden, including beneficiary families, healthcare professionals, institution volunteers, and friends. Leo, now almost 4 years old, ran among the guests, a visibly happy and lively child. During the party, a mother approached Caleb. Caleb, I want to thank you. My daughter had been hospitalized for 3 months, and the doctors had lost hope. When I met you and learned the techniques you teach, everything changed. Today she is at home, playing, being a child. Caleb was moved but maintained his characteristic humility. Ma'am, it was your love that saved your daughter. I only showed a different way to show that love. Harrison watched these interactions and felt proud of the son life had gifted him. Caleb had become an exceptional young man, keeping his natural kindness but gaining confidence and knowledge. A year later, when Caleb turned 13, he made a special request to Harrison. Dad, Harrison, I want to study medicine. I want to become a doctor, but a different kind of doctor. Different how? A doctor who treats the illness, but who also cares for the person. Who understands that medicine is important, but love is too. Caleb, that's wonderful. We'll give you all the support you need to make this dream come true. And I want the institution to create a school to train this kind of professional. Doctors who learn both science and humanity. Caleb's idea was revolutionary. Harrison invited Dr. Bennett and other doctors to discuss the proposal. Is it possible to create a course that trains more humanized doctors? Doctor Bennett was enthusiastic about the idea. Not only is it possible, it's necessary. Modern medicine sometimes forgets it deals with people, not just diseases. And do you think educational institutions would accept this approach? If we present the results we've been achieving, I'm sure they would. Numbers don't lie, and our numbers are impressive. The Humanized Medical School project began to take shape. Harrison used a significant portion of his personal fortune to fund the project, but also secured support from other business people and even the government. Caleb, still a teenager, actively participated in the planning. His practical experience and his sensitivity were considered by the adults as fundamental to the initiative's success. Caleb, are you sure you want to dedicate your life to this? Yes, I am, Dad Harrison. You know why? Because I learned that life's greatest joy is seeing other people happy. And if I can help sick children be happier, and their families to have hope, then my life will have been worth it. Leo, now 5 years old, listened to these conversations attentively. Although he still battled his illness, He was an intellectually normal and very observant child. "Caleb, when I grow up, I want to help children too." "You already do, Leo. Your joy helps everyone around you be happier." "But I want to do what you do. I want to take care of sick children." Caleb hugged his little brother. "If that's what you want to do when you grow up, we'll do it together. How about that?" Harrison and Eleanor watched this scene with emotion. Their two sons, because Caleb was truly a son now, had found a life purpose based on helping others. The humanized medical school was inaugurated 3 years later, when Caleb was 16. He was invited to give the opening lecture, speaking about his experience and the importance of treating patients with love beyond medicine. "When I was 10 and living on the street, I never imagined that one day I'd be here speaking to future doctors," began Caleb, his voice steady but emotional. "But life taught me that we all have something important to offer, regardless of where we come from or what we've been through." The audience, composed of medical students, experienced doctors and professors, was completely silent, absorbing every word. "My brother Silas and my mother taught me that medicine isn't just about curing diseases. It's about caring for people. It's about giving hope when it seems there is none left. It's about remembering that behind every symptom there is a person with fears, dreams, and a family who loves them." Harrison, who was in the audience with Eleanor and Leo, felt immense pride in the young man Caleb had become. "You will learn about anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, all the important sciences to be a good doctor. But I want to ask you not to forget to learn about compassion, empathy, and love. Because sometimes a hug heals more than medicine, a smile gives more strength than a procedure, and hope saves more lives than any technology." The lecture was an absolute success. Several students approached Caleb afterward, wanting to know more about his story and the humanized care techniques he had developed. A first-year student asked a question that touched Caleb deeply. "Caleb, did you have to go through so much suffering to learn these lessons? Do you regret having lived through all of that?" Caleb thought carefully before answering. "I don't regret it. Of course, I would prefer that my mother and my brother were still with me. Of course, I would prefer not to have gone hungry and cold on the streets, but if I hadn't lived through all of that, I wouldn't have learned what I learned. I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have found my family. Sometimes God allows us to go through hardships so that we can help others who are going through the same difficulties." Caleb's answer spread quickly among the students and teachers at the school. Many commented that they had never heard such a mature reflection on suffering and life's purpose from someone so young. That night at home, the Sterling family gathered to talk about the day. "Caleb, I am so proud of you," said Harrison. "Your talk was inspiring." "Thank you, Dad Harrison. But you know what made me happiest today?" "What?" "Seeing that our story can really change how doctors are trained. Imagine how many children and families will be helped by doctors who learn to care with love." Eleanor, who had been part of the entire journey from the beginning, made a profound observation. "Caleb, do you realize you've transformed the pain of your loss into healing for others? That is a rare gift. It wasn't just me, Mom Eleanor. It was our whole family. You taught me that love multiplies when it's shared." Leo, now 8 years old and still battling his illness, but living a happy childhood, made a comment that surprised everyone. "Caleb, do you think I was born sick to teach our family about love?" The question left everyone in silence. It was a reflection too deep for an 8-year-old. Caleb knelt in front of his little brother. "Leo, you weren't born to suffer. You were born to be loved and to spread joy. The illness happened, but what matters is how our family grew from it. You taught us that every day is precious, and you taught us that we can turn any difficult situation into something good if we have enough love," Leo added. Harrison hugged both of his sons, moved by the wisdom they showed. "You two are my teachers. You've taught me more about life in a few years than I learned in decades." Mrs. Dorothy, who had witnessed the entire conversation in silence, approached the family. "If I may offer an observation from someone who has followed this journey from the beginning, you are a family who knew how to transform a tragedy into a blessing, and that is a rare miracle." In the following years, the institution created by the Sterling family became a national reference for humane treatment of children with serious illnesses. The medical school graduated its first class of compassionate doctors who spread across the country, bringing a new approach to medical care. Caleb became the youngest invited speaker at various medical conferences, always speaking about the importance of treating the patient as a whole person, not just a medical condition. Leo, against all medical expectations, celebrated his 10th birthday surrounded by family and friends. His illness was still present, but he had learned to live with it, always maintaining his joy and his ability to inspire others. Dad Harrison, can I ask you a question? Of course, Leo. Do you think people who have serious illnesses are chosen to teach something to the world? Harrison was surprised by the question, but reflected carefully before answering. I think some special people turn their difficulties into lessons for others, and you are one of those special people. So, my illness wasn't for nothing. Nothing in life is for nothing, son. Your illness brought Caleb to our family, united us like we had never been before, created an institution that has already helped thousands of families and changed a lot of people's lives. If that's not purpose, I don't know what is. Leo smiled, satisfied with the answer. So, I'm helping the world even though I'm sick. You're helping the world precisely because you're showing how it's possible to be happy even when facing difficulties. That's a very powerful example. Caleb, who had been listening to the conversation, joined the two. Leo, you taught me that strength isn't about having no problems. Strength is having problems and still continuing to smile, play, and love. You're the strongest person I know. In that moment, Harrison realized his family had found something few people find, a common purpose that gave meaning to all the difficulties they had faced. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. When Caleb turned 18, he received two pieces of news that changed his perspective on the future. The first was his acceptance into medical school at the most prestigious university in the country, with a full scholarship due to his background and his work in the field of medical humanization. The second piece of news was more surprising. An international health foundation had become interested in the work developed by the Sterling Institution and wanted to fund the expansion of the project to other countries in Latin America. Caleb, this means our approach can help children in several countries, explained Harrison during a family meeting. It's incredible, Dad Harrison, but at the same time, it's frightening. It's a huge responsibility. You don't have to carry this responsibility alone. We're a family and families face challenges together. Eleanor, who had become the director of humanization at the institution, added, Caleb, remember when you were a 10-year-old boy who just wanted to help one sick child? Look how far we've come because of that simple desire to help. It's true. Sometimes I still wake up thinking all of this is a very long dream. Leo, now 11, made a suggestion that surprised everyone. Caleb, what if you studied medicine here, but then did a specialization abroad to learn how other countries care for sick children? That way you could bring the best from around the world and mix it with what we already know. Leo's suggestion was considered brilliant by the adults. Caleb decided to follow that path. Undergraduate studies locally, focusing on pediatrics and medical humanization, followed by an international specialization. During his college years, Caleb continued his work at the family institution, now as the director of program development. He created care protocols that were adopted by hospitals across the country. One of his medical professors commented, Caleb, I've never seen a student who combines technical knowledge with human sensitivity like you do. You have a natural gift for being an exceptional doctor. Professor, everything I know I learned from caring for my younger brother. Medicine is just giving me the scientific tools to do better what I already did by instinct. That's exactly the attitude missing in modern medicine. Congratulations on maintaining that perspective. During his third year of college, Caleb had an experience that deeply marked his training. During a rotation at the pediatric hospital, he encountered a situation very similar to what he had lived through with his own family. A mother was desperate because her 3-year-old son had received a serious diagnosis, and the doctors were pessimistic about the prognosis. The child had been hospitalized for weeks, constantly crying, refusing food, and not responding well to treatment. Caleb asked his supervisor for permission to apply some humanized care techniques with the child. Within a few days, the boy was calmer, accepting food and even smiling occasionally. "Caleb, what did you do?" asked his mother, amazed. "Ma'am, I just talked to him, sang a few songs, gave gentle massages. I showed him that he is loved and that he is not alone." "But how did you know what to do?" "I learned by caring for someone I love very much, and I learned that a sick child needs to feel that someone believes in them." The internship supervisor was impressed with the results Caleb achieved and decided to document the case to present at a medical conference. "Caleb, may I include you as a co-author on the paper about this case?" "Professor, I'd prefer the focus to be on the techniques, not on me. What's important is that other doctors learn these approaches. Once again, you demonstrate exceptional maturity, but your personal story is important to validate the effectiveness of the techniques." The paper was published and had a major impact in the medical community. Caleb, still a student, began receiving invitations to speak at national and international conferences. Harrison accompanied Caleb to one of these lectures and was moved to see his son being recognized by the medical community as a reference in pediatric humanization. "Caleb, your biological mother would be so proud to see how far you've come." "Dad Harrison, I feel she's watching, and that she is happy to know the pain we went through was not in vain. And your brother Silas too. He is being honored every time you help a sick child. That's why I do all this, to honor their memory and to ensure other families don't go through what we did." During his final year of college, Caleb received an unexpected proposal. The World Health Organization invited him to join a working group on humanization in pediatric health. "Caleb, this is an extraordinary honor for someone who hasn't even graduated yet," commented Dr. Bennett. "And at the same time, it's a responsibility that scares me. I will be representing not only my experience, but the experience of all the families I've met. You are ready for this. Your combination of practical experience, academic knowledge, and human sensitivity is exactly what this group needs." Leo, now 15 and still facing his illness with admirable courage, made a comment that perfectly summed up the situation. "Caleb, remember when you were a street kid who just wanted to help one sick child? Now you're going to help sick children all over the world. That's amazing. Leo, all of this happened because our family taught me that true love multiplies when it is shared. You've taught me that every day. And you taught me that having an illness doesn't mean life is over. It means life has to be lived more intensely." Harrison watched this exchange between his two sons and felt immense gratitude for all the lessons he had learned throughout that journey. "Boys, do you know you are my greatest prides?" "We know, Dad Harrison." "And do you know you are our hero? You could have left Caleb on the street that day, but you chose to open your home and your heart." "Actually, Leo, it was Caleb who saved our family. He taught us what real love is." Mrs. Dorothy, who had witnessed the entire conversation, made an observation that deeply touched the family. "Do you know what impresses me most about you all? It's that you managed to turn one of the most difficult situations a family can face into the strength that drives you to help others. That is very rare to see. Mrs. Dorothy, you have always been our wise counselor. What do you think lies ahead for our family?" "Mr. Sterling, I think you are going to help many more people than you already have. And I think Leo is still going to surprise us with his strength and wisdom." As if to confirm Mrs. Dorothy's words, Leo announced a decision that surprised everyone. "I want to study psychology. I want to help families going through what our family went through." "Psychology, Leo? Why?" "Because I realize the hardest part of having a serious illness isn't the illness itself. It's the fear, the sadness, the feeling of being alone. I want to help people deal with those feelings." Caleb hugged his brother, moved. "Leo, you are amazing. You'll team up with me. I take care of the body. You take care of the soul." "Exactly. And together we'll take care of the whole person." Harrison realized his two sons had found not only life purposes, but complementary purposes that could further revolutionize the care of sick children and their families. A few months later, Caleb graduated from medical school with highest honors. His speech as class valedictorian was considered one of the most moving in the college's history. Fellow graduates, today you receive a diploma that authorizes you to practice medicine. But I want to remind you that being a doctor is much more than applying scientific knowledge. It is being an instrument of hope, healing, and love. The audience, composed of graduates, family, and professors, was completely silent, absorbing every word. Each of you chose medicine for a reason, some for a passion for science, others for a desire to help people, others still for professional stability. All are valid reasons. But I want to ask that regardless of the reason that brought you here, you never forget that every patient is someone that someone loves very much. Harrison, Eleanor, Leo, and Mrs. Dorothy were in the front row with tears in their eyes, proud of the young man Caleb had become. 8 years ago, I was a street kid who didn't even know if I'd have a place to sleep the next night. Today, I am here, a medical graduate, ready to dedicate my life to caring for sick children. This was only possible because a family decided to love me unconditionally, and because a little brother taught me that true strength is to keep smiling, even when everything seems lost. The audience rose in prolonged applause. Many professors commented afterward that they had never heard a graduation speech so touching and inspiring. After the ceremony, the Sterling family organized a small celebration at home. Caleb insisted it be simple, just with the dearest people. Caleb, how do you feel being officially a doctor? I feel grateful, Dad Harrison. Grateful to have made it here. Grateful to have a family that supports me. Grateful to have found my purpose in life. And what are your plans now? I want to do a pediatrics residency here in Latin America to stay close to the family and our institution. After that, I want to do an international specialization, as Leo suggested. And I want to keep developing medical humanization protocols. Leo, who was finishing high school and preparing for the psychology college entrance exam, asked an important question. Caleb, do you think our story can inspire other young people who have faced hardships not to give up on their dreams? I think so, Leo. And I think you will also be an inspiration. You are proving it's possible to turn an illness into strength to help others. We are both going to show that it doesn't matter where you come from or what difficulties you face. What matters is the love you have in your heart and the will to make a difference. Harrison watched his two sons talking about the future and realized they had created not just a family, but a legacy that would last for generations. A few months later, Caleb began his pediatrics residency at the same hospital where he had met Leo years before. His first day was especially emotional because he walked down the same hallway where it had all begun. Dr. Caleb, welcome to our team, said the head of pediatrics. Your reputation precedes you. We are eager to learn your humanization techniques. Thank you, Doctor. I am very honored to be part of this team. During his first weeks of residency, Caleb quickly stood out not only for his technical knowledge, but for the unique way he connected with patients and their families. A veteran nurse commented to colleagues, "I've never seen such a young doctor with so much maturity in dealing with sick children and desperate parents. He has a natural gift." Caleb heard these comments with humility, always remembering that his skills had been developed through painful experiences he wouldn't wish on anyone. One day during his shift, a 5-year-old child arrived at the hospital with symptoms very similar to what Leo had presented years ago. The parents were in a panic, and the child cried incessantly. Caleb approached the family calmly and began to apply the techniques he had perfected over the years. Within minutes, the child was calmer, and the parents felt more hopeful. "Doctor, how did you manage to calm our son? The other doctors couldn't. I understand what he is going through, and I understand what you are going through too. I've been on the other side of this situation." Caleb spent considerable time explaining to the parents about the illness, about the treatment possibilities, and especially about the importance of maintaining hope and love throughout the process. "Doctor, do you have children? I have a younger brother who went through the same situation, and I can assure you that true love works miracles, not always in the way we want, but always in the way we need." The parents left the conversation with a completely different perspective on the situation. Instead of total despair, they had cautious hope and a care plan that included love and medical technique. The head of pediatrics, who had observed the entire interaction, called Caleb for a talk. "Dr. Caleb, in 30 years of medicine, I have rarely seen such an effective approach with families in crisis. You have an exceptional talent." "Thank you, doctor, but it's really just life experience applied to medicine. I would like to propose something. How about we create an official protocol based on your approach? We could implement it throughout the hospital." "It would be an honor. But I would like to include my family in that development. They were fundamental in creating these techniques." The protocol developed by Caleb and his family was implemented in the hospital and quickly showed impressive results. Hospitalized children had fewer crying episodes, better acceptance of treatments, and, surprisingly, shorter hospital stays. The hospital administration decided to present the results at a national pediatrics conference. Caleb was invited to give the keynote presentation. "Dear colleagues, I am here to share not just medical techniques, but a philosophy of care that can transform our practice." The presentation was an absolute success. Hospitals across the country began requesting training to implement the protocol developed by the Sterling family. Harrison, who had followed the presentation, was moved to see how the pain they had lived through years ago was turning into healing for so many other families. "Caleb, your mother and your brother would be proud to see the impact their lives have had on the world." "Dad Harrison, sometimes I feel like they are helping me, that they are guiding my hand when I care for other children. I believe they are. True love never dies. It transforms and continues to do good for the world." During his second year of residency, Caleb received news that made him very happy. Leo had been accepted into the psychology program at the same university where he had studied medicine. "Leo, congratulations. Now we'll officially work together caring for children and families." "Caleb, I can't wait to get started. I want to learn everything about helping families deal with serious illnesses. You already know more than many trained professionals. Your personal experience is invaluable." Harrison watched his two sons planning the future together and realized they had found not only individual purposes, but a common mission that would give meaning to their lives. 2 years later, when Caleb completed his residency and Leo was in his third year of psychology, the family institution had grown exponentially. It served over 500 families, had partnerships with 10 hospitals in different states, and had trained more than 1,000 healthcare professionals in humanization techniques. "Harrison, you've created something extraordinary," commented Dr. Bennett during a board meeting. "This institution is changing the reality of pediatric healthcare in the country. Doctor, all of this was only possible because a street kid decided to help a sick child. Sometimes the biggest transformations are born from the simplest gestures." Caleb, who was now the institution's technical director as well as a pediatrician, made an ambitious proposal. "Dad Harrison, what if we expand our work to other countries in Latin America? We have invitations from hospitals in Argentina, Chile, and Colombia." "Caleb, that's wonderful, but are you sure we're ready for such a big expansion?" "We are. We have the methodology, we have proven results, and most importantly, we are certain our approach can help children anywhere in the world." Leo, who was present at the meeting, made an important suggestion. "What if we also created an online psychological support program for families who can't come to us in person?" Leo's idea was considered brilliant. They developed a digital platform that offered psychological consultations, virtual support groups, and educational material for families with sick children. In no time, the platform was serving families from all over Brazil and even from other countries in Latin America. A mother from Argentina left a testimony that deeply touched the family. "When my son received a serious diagnosis, I thought our life was over. I found you online and participated in the online support groups. The psychologist who helped me, Leo, taught me that illness is not the end of life. It's the beginning of a different life, but one that can be equally beautiful. Today, my son is well, and our family is more united than ever. Thank you for giving us back hope." Leo was moved reading the testimony. "Caleb, sometimes I still can't believe we managed to turn our pain into healing for so many people." "Leo, that happened because our family chose to transform suffering into love, and love always multiplies. Harrison, who had followed this entire journey from the beginning, made an important reflection. Boys, do you realize you've already helped more people than many manage to help in an entire lifetime? And you're still young. Dad Harrison, that was only possible because you and Mom Eleanor taught us that our mission in life isn't just to be happy, but to make others happy too. Eleanor, who had become a specialist in hospital humanization and gave lectures across the country, added, "And you taught us that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, love, and commitment to each other's well-being." Mrs. Dorothy, now over 70 years old, but still active in the institution as volunteer coordinator, made a comment that perfectly summarized the family's journey. "In 40 years of caring for families, I've never seen such a beautiful transformation. You've proven there is no difficulty that cannot be turned into a blessing if we have enough love." At that moment, looking at his gathered family, Harrison, Eleanor, Caleb, Leo, and Mrs. Dorothy, Harrison realized they had achieved something very rare, turning a foretold tragedy into a story of hope that was changing the lives of thousands of people. "Family, do you know what my greatest happiness is?" "What is it, Dad Harrison?" "Knowing that our story doesn't end with us. Every family we help, every professional we train, every child who receives humanized care is spreading love throughout the world. We are creating waves of kindness that will continue long after we are gone." Caleb hugged his father, moved. "Dad Harrison, when I was a street kid, I only dreamed of having a family. I never imagined I would be part of a family that would change the world. You are not just part of this family, Caleb. You are the heart of this family. It was you who taught us what truly matters in life." Leo joined the hug. "And you taught me that having a serious illness can be an opportunity to make a difference in the world. I will never be able to thank you enough for that." Eleanor and Mrs. Dorothy also joined the family hug, creating a moment of gratitude and pure love that defined exactly what the Sterling family had become. Years passed. Caleb became an international reference in pediatric humanization, wrote books that were translated into several languages, and received awards from medical organizations worldwide. But his greatest joy remained caring for sick children and teaching his techniques to other professionals. Leo graduated in psychology and specialized in pediatric psycho-oncology. He created psychological support protocols that were adopted by hospitals in several countries. Despite still managing his medical condition, he became a living example of how it is possible to live a full and meaningful life, even while facing health challenges. The institution founded by the family grew so much that it became an international organization, with headquarters in over 15 countries. Thousands of healthcare professionals were trained in their techniques, and hundreds of thousands of families benefited from their programs. Harrison, who had gone from being just a businessman to a philanthropist dedicated to the humanization of healthcare, often reflected on the extraordinary journey his family had lived. One afternoon, he was sitting in the garden at home, watching Caleb and Leo play with some children who were visiting the institution. They were children undergoing medical treatment, but at that moment they were simply being children, laughing, running, enjoying life. Eleanor sat beside her husband. "What are you thinking about, love?" "I'm thinking about how our life changed completely since that day at the hospital. So many years ago." "Changed for the better, do you think?" "Changed for the best possible. Of course, we would have preferred that Leo hadn't gotten sick, but if it weren't for that, we would never have met Caleb. We would never have discovered our true vocation in life. And we would never have helped so many people." "Exactly. Sometimes I think God allowed us to go through that difficulty so we could be instruments of healing for others." Mrs. Dorothy approached the two, bringing tea. "May I intrude on your conversation?" "Of course, Mrs. Dorothy. You always have wise things to say." "I was thinking about how you two have changed over these years. Harrison, you were a businessman focused only on making money. Eleanor, you were a housewife who didn't know what your purpose in life was. And now? Now you are people who discovered that true happiness doesn't come from having things, but from giving things, from giving love, hope, care." Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Mrs. Dorothy, sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if I hadn't stopped to talk with Caleb that day at the hospital. Mr. Sterling, some things are destiny, You were meant to meet because everyone had something important to give each other. You're right. Caleb needed a family. We needed to learn about true love, and the world needed the techniques we developed together. At that moment, Caleb came running over, holding one of the children. Dad Harrison, Mom Eleanor, this is Maya. She's 5 years old and is being treated for the same illness Leo had at her age. The girl smiled shyly, but it was clear she felt safe in Caleb's arms. Hello, Maya. How are you feeling? I'm okay. Dr. Caleb taught me that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and still keeping on smiling. Harrison was moved by the wisdom of that small child. It was evident she had absorbed the lessons Caleb taught through his loving care. Maya, do you want to know a secret? The girl nodded, curious. My son Leo had the same illness as you when he was very little, and look at him over there, running and playing. Maya looked at Leo, who was playing tag with other children, and her eyes shone with hope. Did he get better? He learned to live well with the illness, and you will too. Dr. Caleb said I'll learn to be even stronger than the other kids. Caleb smiled, proud to see how his words had been absorbed by the girl. Maya is right. Children who go through challenges like hers develop extraordinary inner strength. Leo joined the group, a little tired from playing but with a face radiant with joy. Maya, do you want me to tell you a secret about having a special illness? Yes. When we have a special illness, our heart grows bigger. It has more room for love, for courage, for helping other people. Really? Yes, really. Look, I learned so much about love because of my illness that now I can help many families going through what my family went through. Harrison watched his 2 sons talking with Maya and realized they had become exactly what he had always dreamed, good men who used their experiences to do good in the world. Maya's mother, who had been silently observing the whole interaction, approached with tears in her eyes. I don't know how to thank you all. For weeks, my daughter only cried and refused to talk about the illness. In one afternoon here, she's smiling and talking about being brave. Eleanor hugged the mother. Ma'am, we are the ones who thank you for allowing us to care for Maya. Every child we help teaches us something new about love and courage. How do you manage to be so strong? How do you turn something so difficult into something so beautiful? Caleb answered simply, Ma'am, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We can choose to use our pain to destroy us, or to make us more compassionate toward the pain of others. And how did you make that choice? It wasn't a single choice. It was a choice we made every day for years, and we still make it every day. Leo added, and we didn't do it alone. We did it as a family. When one of us was weak, the others were strong. That makes all the difference. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Dorothy, who came to announce that dinner was ready. Mrs. Dorothy, can Maya have dinner with us? Of course she can, Leo. There's always room at our table for a child. During dinner, Maya talked about her life, her fears, and her hopes. The Sterling family listened attentively, offering encouragement and sharing their own experiences. Maya, do you have any brothers or sisters? I have an older brother. He gets sad because of my illness. And how do you feel about that? I get sad because he gets sad. But Dr. Caleb told me I can help my brother not be so sad. How? By showing him I can be happy even when I'm sick. That way he'll learn he doesn't need to be sad for me. Harrison was impressed by the maturity of that 5-year-old. It was evident that the compassionate care Caleb offered not only healed the body, but developed the children's emotional wisdom. After dinner, while Maya played with some toys in the living room, her mother spoke with the Sterling family. You've changed my daughter in a few hours. How is that possible? Harrison explained. Mum, when a child feels truly loved and understood, she finds strength she didn't even know she had. Caleb taught that to our family, and now we try to teach it to other families. Would you accept being Maya's godparents? Not in the religious sense, but in the sense of being a support family for her during treatment. Caleb and Leo looked at each other, moved. It would be an honor, ma'am. Maya is already part of our extended family, and we will follow every step of her treatment. You will never be alone on this journey. Maya's mother cried with gratitude, knowing she had found not only competent doctors, but a family that genuinely cared about her daughter's well-being. That night, after Maya and her mother had left, the Sterling family gathered in the living room for their daily talk, a tradition they had kept since Caleb's first days in the family. "How do you feel about being Maya's godparents?" "Dad Harrison, it's a big responsibility, but also a great joy. Every child who comes into our life teaches us something new." "And Maya? What is she teaching you, Caleb?" "She's teaching me that courage has no age. A 5-year-old can have more courage than many adults. And you, Leo, what did you learn today?" "I learned that our story can give hope to other families who are at the beginning of the journey we've already traveled. It's a beautiful responsibility." Eleanor made an important observation. "Do you realize we're not just caring for sick children? We're forming a network of families who support each other." "It's true, Mom," Eleanor. "The families we help also help each other. We're creating a community of love and support." Mrs. Dorothy, who was finishing tidying the kitchen, joined the family in the living room. "May I make an observation? In all these years working with you, what impresses me most is that you've never lost your humility. Even with all the recognition you receive, you still treat each family as if it were the first one you're helping." "Mrs. Dorothy, that's because every family is truly unique. Every child, every story, every challenge is different. You can't become proud when you know there's always more to learn." Harrison reflected on his son's words. "Caleb is right. This journey has taught us that the more we learn about love and care, the more we realize how much we still have to learn. And that there will always be people needing help. Our mission will never be completely finished." "But isn't that discouraging, Leo?" "No, Dad Harrison. It's motivating. It means we'll always have the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life." Caleb agreed. "And it means our life has a constant purpose. It's not about arriving at a place. It's about the path we walk and the people we help along the way." That night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Harrison stayed awake thinking about everything they had lived through and achieved. He looked out the bedroom window and saw the full moon illuminating the garden where, years ago, Caleb had played with Leo for the first time. Eleanor, noticing her husband was awake, approached. "Can't sleep. I'm thinking about everything we've been through. It seems impossible that so much good could have come from such a difficult moment." "Harrison, have you ever thought that maybe that difficult moment wasn't an accident? That maybe it was exactly what needed to happen for us to get here?" "What do you mean?" "If Leo hadn't gotten sick, you would never have been at the hospital that day. If you hadn't been at the hospital, you would never have met Caleb. If we hadn't met Caleb, we would never have discovered our calling to help other families." Harrison reflected on his wife's words. "Are you saying Leo's illness was necessary so we could help so many other children?" "I'm saying that sometimes the hardest things we go through are also what prepare us to do the most important things in our life." "That's an interesting perspective, turning pain into purpose." "Exactly. And look at the result. Thousands of families have been helped. Hundreds of professionals have been trained. 2 amazing boys have become extraordinary men." Harrison hugged his wife. "Eleanor, thank you for believing in Caleb from day one. Thank you for supporting all the crazy decisions I made along this journey." "Harrison, they were the best crazy decisions you could have made, and look where they've brought us." The next morning, Caleb woke up early to go to the hospital. Before leaving, as he always did, he stopped by Leo's room to see how his brother had slept. "Good morning, Leo. How are you feeling today?" "Good, Caleb. I dreamed about Maya last night. I dreamed she was playing in our garden, completely healed and happy." "What a beautiful dream. Who knows, maybe it's a vision of the future." "I hope so. But even if it's not, she's already happier than yesterday, and that's already a victory." Caleb smiled, admiring his brother's wisdom. "Leo, you have a very beautiful way of seeing life. I learned it from you, Caleb. You taught me that every small improvement is a miracle. And you taught me that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up every time you do." The 2 brothers hugged as they did every morning, renewing their silent pact to take care of each other and to use their experiences to help others. Before leaving for work, Caleb stopped in the kitchen, where Mrs. Dorothy was already preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Mrs. Dorothy. Did you sleep well?" I did, my dear, and you, are you ready for another day of saving lives? Mrs. Dorothy, I don't save lives. I just show people that they have more strength than they think. Caleb, that is what saving lives truly is, giving hope back to those who lost it. Do you think we're making a real difference in the world? Mrs. Dorothy stopped what she was doing and looked seriously at Caleb. My dear, in 70 years of life, I have never seen people make as much of a difference as you and your family do. You're not just helping sick children, you're changing the way the world treats sick children. Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. Your words mean a lot to me. And do you know why they mean so much? Because they come from the heart of someone who has seen your transformation from the first day. You were a scared boy who just wanted to help. Today you are a man who is changing the world. That is something to be very proud of. Caleb left the house with his heart warmed by Mrs. Dorothy's words. On the way to the hospital, he reflected on how his life had completely changed, but how his essence, the desire to help sick children, remained exactly the same. At the hospital, he was greeted by the staff, as always, with respect and admiration. His reputation had grown so much that doctors from other countries came to do internships with him to learn his techniques. That day, he had a particularly intense schedule. 5 follow-up appointments, 2 initial consultations with families who had just received difficult diagnoses, and a meeting with the hospital board to discuss expanding the humanization protocols. His first patient was Maya, who was returning for a follow-up 2 weeks after the home visit to the Sterling family. "Hi, Dr. Caleb," said Maya, running to hug him. "Hi, Maya. How are you?" "I'm doing great. My mom said I could share some news with you." "What news?" "My brother isn't sad about my illness anymore. I taught him that I can be happy even when I'm sick, just like you taught me." Caleb was moved by the girl's story. This was exactly the kind of transformation that motivated him to continue his work. "Maya, do you remember what we talked about brave children?" "I do. That being brave isn't about not being scared, it's about being scared and still smiling anyway." "Exactly, and you are being very brave." Maya's mother approached. "Dr. Caleb, I don't know how to thank you. My daughter is completely different. Happier, more confident, more hopeful." "Ma'am, Maya always had that strength inside her. I just showed her how to use it." "But how did you know what to say? How did you know exactly what she needed?" Caleb looked at Maya, who was playing with some toys in the office, and answered, "Because I've been in her position. I know what it's like to be a child who needs hope. And I know what it's like to be surrounded by people who believe in you." During the appointment, Caleb examined Maya and was pleased with her progress. The tests showed she was responding well to the treatment. But more importantly, she was facing the situation with a positive attitude that certainly contributed to her improvement. "Maya, do you want to tell me about school? How are your friends reacting to your situation?" At first, some were scared of me, but I explained that my illness isn't contagious and that I'm still the same Maya as always. "And how did you explain that to them?" "I said I have a special illness that's teaching me to be stronger and braver, and that one day when they have a hard problem, I'll be able to help because I've already learned how to be strong." Caleb was impressed by the maturity of Maya's response. At 5 years old, she had intuitively understood that her difficulties could become tools to help others. "Maya, you are very smart, and very generous too. Dr. Caleb, can I ask you something?" "Of course. When you were a child and lived on the street, were you scared?" The question caught Caleb by surprise. It was the first time one of the children he cared for had asked such a direct question about his past. "Yes, I was, Maya. I was very scared. Scared of not having a place to sleep, scared of not having anything to eat, scared of being alone." "And how did you stop being scared?" "I found a family who loved me, and I learned that when we have people who love us, we can face any fear. Just like I have my family and you all too." "Exactly like that. Love gives us the courage to face anything." Maya smiled, satisfied with the answer, and continued playing. Her mother, who had listened to the whole conversation, was visibly moved. "Dr. Caleb, may I ask a personal question?" "Of course. Do you have children of your own?" "Yes, I do. I have a brother I consider my son, And I have hundreds of children like Maya, who I also consider my children. Isn't it tiring to care for so many children at once? Ma'am, love doesn't tire. Love energizes. Every child I care for gives me more strength to care for the next one. The conversation was interrupted by the nurse entering, announcing that the next patient had arrived. Maya said goodbye to Caleb with a big hug, promising to keep being brave until her next appointment. The next patient was a new case, an 8-year-old boy who had received a diagnosis similar to Leo's. The parents were visibly desperate, and the child was scared and withdrawn. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Caleb. And you are? I'm Claire, this is my wife Paige, and this is our son Oliver. Caleb crouched down to Oliver's level, who was hiding behind his mother. Hi, Oliver. How are you? The boy didn't answer, just hid further. Doctor, he's been like this since he learned the diagnosis. He doesn't speak, doesn't play, doesn't want to eat. Caleb immediately understood the situation. Oliver was in shock, exactly like Leo had been at the beginning. Oliver, can I tell you a secret? The boy looked up, curious. I have a brother who had the same illness as you when he was very little, and do you know what happened to him? Oliver shook his head. He learned to be the bravest boy I know, and today he helps other kids be brave too. Really? Asked Oliver, speaking for the first time. Really? And you know what else? He's eager to meet you. Why? Because he knows you can learn to be brave too, and then you can help other kids, just like he does. Oliver's face lit up slightly. For the first time since entering the office, he managed to smile. Can I meet your brother? Yes, you can. In fact, our family has a tradition of inviting special kids like you to have dinner at our house. Would you like to come? Oliver looked at his parents, who nodded emotionally. I'd like that very much. The rest of the appointment unfolded completely differently. Oliver participated actively, asked questions about his treatment, and even laughed a few times at the stories Caleb told. When the family left the office, Claire approached Caleb. Doctor, in 15 minutes you achieved what we couldn't in 2 weeks. How? Mrs. Claire, I just showed Oliver that he is not alone on this journey, that there are other children who went through the same thing and became stronger. The dinner invitation to your home, was it serious? Completely serious. My family loves meeting brave kids like Oliver. We don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank us. Allowing us to care for Oliver is already a gift for us. The rest of the day at the hospital unfolded similarly. Every family Caleb saw left with more hope, more knowledge about their child's condition, and, most importantly, with the feeling that they were not alone on the journey. At the end of the day, Caleb met with the hospital board to discuss expanding the humanization protocols. Dr. Caleb, the results of your protocols are impressive, said the general director. A 40% reduction in average hospital stay, a 60% decrease in episodes of crying and agitation among admitted children, an 80% increase in family satisfaction. Doctor, these numbers just confirm what we've always known, that love is medicine too. We want to implement your protocols in all hospitals in our network. Will you agree to lead this process? I accept, but on one condition. What is it? That my family participates in the training. They were fundamental in developing these techniques and are an essential part of the process. Of course, in fact, we were hoping you would make that request. The meeting ended with an ambitious plan. In the next 2 years, 15 hospitals in the network would implement the humanization protocols developed by the Sterling family. When Caleb arrived home that night, he found the family gathered in the living room, talking about the day's events. How was your day, Caleb? Asked Harrison. It was a special day, Dad. I met a new kid, Oliver, who reminded me a lot of Leo when he was really little. In what way? Scared, withdrawn, lost, but with a light in his eyes that showed there's a lot of courage hidden inside there. Leo became interested in the conversation. Caleb, did you invite him to have dinner with us? I did. Why? Because I have something special to show him, a project I'm working on. What project? A storybook for children who are starting difficult medical treatments, stories based on our experiences, but adapted for a child's language. Harrison was intrigued. Leo, what a fantastic idea. Can I know more details? Of course, Dad. I write the stories based on our experience. Mom Eleanor helps with the editing, and we're thinking of asking Mrs. Dorothy to illustrate, since she draws so well. Eleanor was excited by the idea. Leo, this could help thousands of children. Stories are a very powerful way to convey hope and courage. That's exactly what I thought, Mom. And each story will teach an important lesson about facing fears, finding courage, trusting family. Mrs. Dorothy, who was listening from the kitchen, approached. Leo, I would be honored to illustrate your stories. What a beautiful project. Caleb hugged his brother, moved. Leo, you never cease to amaze me. You always find new ways to help other children. I learned from you, Caleb. You taught me that our experience only has value if it's shared to help others. Harrison watched his two sons and felt immense pride in the maturity and generosity they showed. Boys, have you thought about how many children will be helped by this book? Dad, Harrison, this is just the beginning. I thought about creating a series of books, each focused on a different lesson. What lessons, for example? How to be brave when I'm scared, how to help my family when I'm sick, how to make friends at the hospital, how to turn difficult days into special days. Eleanor was moved by the depth of her son's ideas. Leo, these are lessons you learned firsthand, aren't they? Exactly, Mum, and I learned that when we share our lessons with others, they multiply. The conversation was interrupted by the phone. Harrison answered, and was surprised to find it was a journalist from an international magazine, wanting to do a story about the family's work. Family, I just received an interesting invitation. An American magazine wants to do a story about our work. International, Dad Harrison? Yes. It seems our story reached them through some doctors who trained with us and then returned to their countries. And what do you think? I think it could be an opportunity to take our approach to even more places, but I want to hear your opinions. Caleb was the first to speak up. Dad Harrison, if it can help more children, I think we should accept. I think so too, agreed Leo. And it would be an opportunity to talk about the book I'm writing. Eleanor and Mrs. Dorothy also agreed it would be a valuable opportunity to expand the reach of the family's work. Then it's decided. I'll call tomorrow and accept the proposal. That night, before bed, Caleb went to Leo's room for their daily talk. Leo, can I ask you a question? Of course, Caleb. Do you regret getting sick? If you could go back in time and change that, would you change it? Leo thought carefully before answering. Caleb, that's a difficult question. Of course, I would prefer not to have to deal with the illness every day, but if I hadn't gotten sick, you would never have come to our family. Our family would never have discovered its calling to help others. Thousands of children would never have been helped. So you wouldn't change anything? No, Caleb, I wouldn't change a thing, because I've learned that our hardships can become our greatest contributions to the world. Caleb hugged his brother, moved by his wisdom. Leo, you are the wisest person I know. I'm only wise because I had you to teach me that hardships can turn into blessings. And I only learned that because I had a family that taught me love transforms everything. In that moment, both understood that their lives were deeply interconnected and that together they could continue making a difference in the lives of many other children and families. End of story. And you, what did you think of this story of overcoming and love? Do you also believe that life's difficulties can turn into opportunities to help others? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.